Hi, I'm Alexis Belton, and this is Send It. And I'm talking all the hottest topics in golf with two very special guests this week. Once again with Adam Stanley and a friend of mine, former LPGA player, current Metro Tour player, Shasta Averyhardt. Thank you guys so much for joining. We had a really great week in golf this past week. Starting off with probably the hottest topic this last weekend, we had Jon Rahm and Dustin Johnson battle it out. Going into a playoff, having to make two major putts. Dustin Johnson making a great putt to go into playoff, and then Jon Rahm knocking down a 66-footer to win the tournament. They are both ranked number 1 and number 2 in the world. What is something that you learned from each player that you didn't know before and that you're looking forward to as we kind of go into the end of the season?
Yeah, I mean, it's not that often that we get the world's number 1 and 2 golfer in a playoff, and it's certainly not that often that they do it in such dramatic fashion. So I think from a Dustin Johnson perspective, what I learned most about him is that the guy actually has some emotion. I mean, we saw a fist pump from him. He was excited to be here. At least it looked that way. This is a guy who can continue to threaten at a golf course, no matter what the conditions are like. I mean, this guy shot 30 under par 2 weeks ago, and then last week, under incredibly different and difficult circumstances, he still manages to threaten the lead and has a chance to win. So Dustin Johnson has emotion, but can also win anytime he tees it up. For Jon Rahm, I think what I learned about him and what I'm excited to see moving forward, especially as we get to this major championship season, is that he's not afraid to back down from anybody, whether it be world number 1, whether it be somebody who made a 40-foot bomb to force a playoff. Jon Rahm has just as much emotion as anybody on tour, and I think if he can really contain that, then he'll be a threat for many years to come. He's already been ranked number 1 in the world, but I do not believe that he is going to be backing down from anybody anytime soon.
I feel like Adam took the words out of my mouth. The emotions that Dustin Johnson was able to display was finally an eye-opening to see, like, okay, this man has emotions. Like he's playing with, he's playing with his heart, but you can see it come out. And especially in a situation like that. And with Jon Rahm, I remember when he first, made his debut on PGA Tour, and he had a temper. And I loved it about him because I was excited to watch him play. And I noticed that obviously he had to calm that down to be able to really progress to the higher level where he's at right now. And the fact that he's still able to express even more emotions and he's not afraid to back down. And then also.
Yeah, I think it says a lot. You have two players that started off with different types of emotions coming into the game. And now, one could say that they're finally starting to, Dustin Johnson, express more, put on more of a performance, play a little bit better. And then you've got Jon Rahm that's finally kind of not necessarily containing his anger or anything like that, but playing from a little bit more strength side. And so it's exciting to watch them. It's going to be really exciting to watch them in the playoff. But also, it's one of the greatest stories that we've had this year. I think we still think that I still think personally, Sophia Popov has one of the greatest stories. And last week, there's a lot of controversy around her because she wasn't an LPGA member. She did not get the 5-year exemption that tour players get when winning a major. Instead, she'll be getting a 1 to 2 year exemption and be playing off of that. What are your thoughts on, one, this rule, and two, Mike Whan released a response, and his response to her not being able to get that 5-year exemption?
It's an interesting rule, certainly. And, Mike Whan, to his credit, really got out in front of everything. Okay, fine. The social media storm had kind of been brewing for a little bit, but, as a commissioner of a international sports league, to come out and speak for 5 minutes off the cuff, to give concrete examples of how this had happened before, and to say, listen, you can disagree with me, and that's totally fine, but I'm not going to change a rule in the middle of the season. Do I disagree with him? I do. I believe if you win a major championship, you should be awarded all of the benefits that come along with it. But do I agree with the way that Mike Whan handled this situation? 100%. I believe Mike Whan has done a lot of things the right way, this included. Do I believe that Sophia Popov deserves that 5-year exemption? 1,000,000%. But would it have been kind of strange to change a rule in the middle of the season? Also 100%. So, tough for Sophia. However, given what she did on the biggest stage in the women's game, a major championship, I wouldn't be surprised if she's going to be around for many, many years to come.
Yeah, I agree with you, Adam. I think, Mike Whan is such a class act. And, with Mike releasing that statement, I think it was the best thing to do to kind of address what's going on so people won't be in such confusion as to why she doesn't get the 5-year exemption. I feel like, I disagree with it. And I think they really need to take a look at it at the end of the season, because you have a situation where you have somebody that is not an LPGA Tour member that just won the British Open, a major championship, and she only gets 1 to 2 years. I feel like she'll need that 5 years? Probably not. Of course. I mean, I think she's an amazing player and she has a solid game, and she has the confidence now to know that, hey, I didn't even have to be an LPGA member to win a tournament, let alone a major.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think the rule is very outdated. However, I kind of disagree with both of you. I think that he can change it in the middle of the season. Obviously, it's something that's happened in the past, and it's continued to happen. Obviously, this one was put on display and media really got a hold of it. It's 2020. I think you can change anything in the middle of the season. I think you can 2020, everything's up in the air. If you need to make a change right now, I feel like you can do it. But I do hope that they do change it for the future, because I do believe that there's so many good players out there that it can definitely happen again. But it said a lot for Mike Whan to come out. It took him a couple of days to get his thoughts together and to speak up, but silence says more than not saying anything at all. And I think this past week has also been really heavy, not only in the sports industry, but also in America, as sports responded to the shooting of Jacob Blake in Wisconsin. NBA players elected not to play in the playoffs. You had the baseball protest and not play. Even tennis, WNBA, a lot of sports really stood up and taking a protest and responding to another shooting of another young African-American male, or just in general, African-American in general. The PGA Tour issued a press release, but everyone in the field seemed to kind of play like normal. And also, they were really close to where the shooting occurred. Did pro golf miss another opportunity to take a big stand for an important social cause? And what would you have liked to see them do?
Sure. I do feel like it was an opportunity missed, but at the same time too, you have to kind of look at the demographic of the PGA Tour. You compared to the NBA. Let's say if the PGA Tour had about 60 to 70% of Black men competing, well, then they have to get on board. I mean, that everybody has to get on board with what the players would want to do. And because of the difference in the percentages, that the awareness is, number one, is really not there unless it's forced in your face. And number two, you also have, it's a very conservative sport. So they're also thinking about the fact that Black Lives Matter has been politicized, which I totally disagree with. This has been taken out of context of what originally was the purpose of Black Lives Matter movement, and now politicized it and made it seem like it's so far left, and it's you got left versus right, and now you're looking at money. And I feel like the PGA Tour is always going to be thinking about their dollars and what makes sense, and that they're going to want to always appease to their sponsors and to the people that are watching. And taking a political stance is something that I feel like they would be the last to do, because they have to protect their money and what funds the PGA Tour. And also on top of that, this Champions Tour as well, and the Korn Ferry Tour. So I feel like it was opportunity missed, but I can understand why they did that. Do I agree with it? No, I don't.
Yeah, it's definitely a bigger step than earlier this year that they've taken, and putting out a response immediately. Also kind of highlighting some other players like Cameron Champ that spoke out and really shed light on the situation. I would like to see golf move in a more progressive state where they feel a little bit more comfortable to speak. But I think it says a lot to what you said, is that it's not on the forefront of their mind because golf is a dominantly white sport. Therefore, a lot of issues that are held in other cultures and other races are not on the forefront of their minds. But I think it is something that is starting to become, that they're becoming aware of, and trying to do things maybe on the back end that we can't see, to make it more inclusive for everyone. Adam?
Yeah, you know, it's an honor for me to be on this conversation with you, Shasta, with you, Alexis, as well, to hear your perspectives on this and on everything else going on in the world. Certainly, my perspective is incredibly different, but I'm here to listen and to learn. And you know, I had a conversation with Joseph Bramlett, one of the very few African Americans on the PGA Tour, a couple of months ago, and he did say that, you know, there's a lot going on behind the scenes, and he's spoken with the commissioner about what they can do as a group and as a tour. I think the interesting thing about the tour as compared to any of the other sports leagues is that the PGA Tour is full of individual contractors. The individuals can do what it is that they would like. So when Cameron Champ wears a black shoe and a white shoe, that's just a Cameron Champ thing. When Kurt Triplett puts a Black Lives Matter sticker on his bag, that's just a Kurt Triplett thing. Kurt Triplett, of course, has four children, two of which are African American, and they're adopted as well. So if Brooks Koepka or Ricky Fowler or Justin Thomas decides to put a black box on their Instagram account, then that's kind of up to the individual. I know Mackenzie Hughes, fellow Canadian, spoke up a little bit about the George Floyd shooting a few months ago as well. So, you know, I think if the collection of individual voices becomes much stronger, then the tour as a whole will have that opportunity to use their platform to the best of their ability. At the end of the day, I think with the tour, as compared to the other sports leagues, it's not so much up to the teams, it's up to the individuals. And I think we're definitely seeing what individuals have their finger on the pulse as it relates to the world at large. Does the tour have a responsibility to do more? Yes. Can the tour do more? Well, it's a bit of a catch-22 because it's a collection of individual golfers. But, you know, when you see someone like Cameron Champ, who has very clearly been influenced and affected by this, Kurt Triplett as well, perhaps a bit of a different perspective from him, you know, as someone who's adopted young African Americans, you know, there's a lot going on outside of the ropes and outside of tournament golf. And I think if these individuals continue to use their platform to showcase that and to drive awareness and to do as much as they can for the game of golf, I think that's a good thing.
You know, I'm interested to see where golf is going to be in the next 5 to 10 years, because looking at the generation below, it's already looking very diverse. A lot of more women in positions that mostly males would have, a lot more diversity. I love the LPGA is such a great example of what I think the future of golf could look like, with people from so many different countries, so many different backgrounds, so different sexualities. You know, it's one of the things that I think golf will look like in the next few years. So a lot of hope in the golf world. And, you know, I always say we play golf with a purpose. We're not just playing out there just for a good time, it is a good time, but there's always a deeper meaning behind the game, behind every game. It's the universal language. So thanks guys so much for joining in this week. And thank you, Shasta, for being a new guest. Adam, always great to have you.
Thank you.
And
Always great.
on Send It.